but after you come back from those 2 years, are you back to shore for another period of time?
Let's see. So yes, I went to now a place in Mississippi called Stennis Space Center, and that's where the headquarters of all the Navy, U.S. Navy Meteorology and Oceanography personnel are. And
Okay.
the kind of long story short, because it's the rest of it's that I got that was a job as a commander, and then and what it was the staff of a one-star admiral who I became. After a little more time moving around and some other tours, which I'll kind of skip over, I then finished up as that one-star admiral in Mississippi as the commander of all these Navy. They call METOC is the term. And then I also had a job in the Pentagon. I double-hatted, and I was the person in the Pentagon who was the chief oceanographer and meteorologist of the Navy, and I advised the chief of naval operations on that. So that was my career. And I know you do want to talk a little bit about post-career, but it was a great ride. I mean, I think the aircraft carrier was one of the most interesting experiences. The other one that I'll highlight before maybe we move on and talk about transition and whatnot is I did get a command tour with Navy SEALs, and what it was is the Navy SEAL headquarters in San Diego. This was when I was a commander, and it was after that shore tour. They asked for my community, the Navy oceanography community, to establish a command of just weather and ocean techs to deploy with them and help them, because this was the height of the insurgency in Iraq, and we were still in Afghanistan, and they were looking for technicians to do all the tricky work like weather forecasting and operating drones and stuff like that. And they were just too burdened with just regular operating. And so I was in charge of a command of 100 of these techs that went out with SEALs in the Philippines and Iraq, Afghanistan, and other places. And that was a really rewarding tour. That's how I got to know Admiral McCraven and several other SEAL admirals, because I was working at that headquarters staff.
Nice. That's a good share. So thank you for that. Now, when you mentioned the Pentagon, how long was you there for? Was it an actual period of time, or was you back and forth?
Right. So I had a 2-year tour at the Pentagon. Well, I also had a 2-year tour at this command in Mississippi as a one-star admiral, and so I was going back and forth. And plus,
Okay.
that one-star command in Mississippi I was in charge of commands all around the world: Japan,
Right.
Bahrain, the U.S., Hawaii. And so I was traveling nonstop just to have some time in each office, the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., as well as Mississippi. And then I traveled to countries that we had partnerships with, like Romania and Japan and Finland and Norway. And then I went to my commands that happened to be in Japan, Bahrain, and all around the world. So I was kind of on the road the whole time. And God bless my wife, who was formerly a Navy diver. She kept our house and our 3 girls really on track while I was gone, just like a deployment.
Wow. And during that kind of double hatting aspect, is this point that you are one-star admiral? Is that right?
Yeah, that's when I was a
Yeah.
one-star admiral. That's right.
So is there anything you can share, a story from those couple of years where you're bouncing around? So it could be from anywhere in the world, maybe in the Pentagon, that stands out from your time there.
Well, I actually have a lot of stories, Gavin. You know what? Maybe I'll come back for a part 2, because I am going to be finishing a book, and we could talk about that book, which will contain some of these stories. I'm going to share one that's kind of funny. And so ultimately, as the one-star admiral in charge of the chief oceanographer for the Navy, as well as the chief meteorologist, I got to speak a lot in public settings. And one of these was pretty interesting. It was at the U.S. State Department in Washington, D.C., and they were having this large international conference on the topic of the ocean. And there was a point in the conference, and you had foreign ministers, very high-level people, cabinet-level people. And and one day in the conference, the person who hosted it was then Secretary of State John Kerry. He gets up and gives his talk and introduces the president, then President Barack Obama. Obama talks, and then he introduces, and there's like 500 people at this place. It's huge. Your picture's on a screen, the people who are talking, and so then Obama speaks, and then he introduces Leonardo DiCaprio. So Leo gets up and gives a talk about the ocean. He's an environmentalist, and then guess who had to follow Leo? Me. So I get up there after him. He walks right off the stage past me. I go and follow him, and I'm here with all these people, very senior people. I mean, like again, cabinet secretaries and the like. Um, and I had to basically keep their attention. So I made a story up involving my wife. And I got up there and I said, well, shoot, everybody, this is going to be really hard to follow the most recent Academy Award winning Best Actor. And so the story I told them was this. I said, well, I figured, to come up with something to say, I figured I'd ask my wife. My wife was a Navy diver and oceanographer like me, and Titanic was her favorite movie, and Leo was her favorite actor. So I asked Karen, and she said, well, Tim, you might want to just say to everybody that the only difference between Leo and you and your Navy career is none of your ships ever sank. So, and actually everyone laughed, and the rest of it went well. So I just got to interact with some really cool people and had some neat experiences like that.
Amazing. That's really cool. Thanks for sharing that. Now, you mentioned about your transition back to civilian life. So what was your kind of reason behind leaving? Was it an end of a contract? Was it something else you wanted to leave for?
Well, I'm a little unique in this because unlike a lot of folks, the transition for me was really positive because I got asked to go serve in the government again. I was a 1-star admiral and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I didn't get promoted to 2-star, but so I was getting ready to leave. And at the time, the way it works in the U.S. is any given president comes in and he puts people in positions, he appoints them as part of a new administration. And these are political appointees. And then unlike the career government, okay? And I got asked by that new administration to serve as the head of the National Ocean and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA. So it's the head Met and an ocean agency for the U.S. And so right as I was planning to leave, they asked me if I wanted to continue serving in that capacity. And what was cool about it, Gav, is it was everything I did in the Navy, but for the nation. Meteorology, hydrography, oceanography, all of that. And so I had this really cool transition. It was really 4 years, but I got to still do what I did at a really high level in the government, and meeting with members of Congress. I testified several times. I've been to the White House multiple times actually, and doing the things I love to do, ocean and weather and those type of scientific topics. And then I transitioned from that just to be now a technology consultant, working with everybody I used to work with in the Navy and in the government now on these topics I like, ocean related things, especially the technology, like you mentioned on the ship, to help us predict the weather and things like that.
Okay. And so just to clarify, what was the reason that you left and you started that transition? What was it because it was the end of like a contract?
Well, okay, so the last transition I had, this one from this agency called NOAA, that was because...
sorry, I'm referring to from your military time over to being a civvy. So was it an end of a contract?
Well, I retired. Oh,
it was retirement. Right.
I had more than 20 years in. I was eligible to retire, so I retired.
Okay. That's cool. So your last few years, you mentioned about a book. Is there anything you want to share from the last few years of what you've been up to and what's been making you tick over the last few years?
Yeah. Thank you. And first, just let me say thank you for letting me be on, because your story itself is an inspiration. You're an Invictus Game gold medal winner, so it's an honor to be here with you, and the challenge and adversity you've overcome. So I just want to acknowledge that, Gavin. I'm really impressed with your archery accomplishments, and it's really it's great to see people like you who make that transition, and it's not easy, but you emerge stronger and better because of it. And so for me here in where I'm at now, I left because I was a political appointee and a new administration came in, and so I've resigned, or not resigned. I just basically, I did resign. That's the technical term. And now, though, I set up my own business to consult for companies that are working with the government, and that's been really enjoyable to me. And because I'm involved with the latest technology, and I really enjoy it. I have people who build satellites, drones, you name it, and it's really fun.
That's good. That's good to hear. But you're enjoying life, which is nice. You're very, very busy because this has been a real challenge to get our schedules aligned, and people can probably feel the quickness of this recording because
Yeah.
you've got places to be. Um, but I think, is there anything from your time in, uh, one last part that you can share from any moment from your last to your beginning of your career, just a moment that made you feel really proud, privileged, or maybe just as a personal level realized that you were in the right place at the right time, and it was the best career for you.
That's a great question. Well, maybe I'll answer your question this way, Gav. First off, when you're so lucky to make admiral or general rank in any military, it's very small percent. And I remember when I heard that I made it, and a lot of people would think, "Oh my gosh, you made admiral! Or, were you doing jumping jacks? Were you high fiving everybody?" The first thing I thought was, wow, I have so many people to thank. Because I just thought about every sailor who I work with, who carried me as an officer. I thought about all my peers that were on teams with me, whether on the bridge or in these standing on a watch floor, and just my parents getting me into the Naval Academy. That was the first thing. And then the second thing was I felt really bad for all my friends who were Navy captains in my community who didn't get it, because that's just the way it is. That's the way the competitive nature of promotions are. And so that is what sort of has created my leadership approach and philosophy, which I think I shared with you, where it's just about being humble and being a team player. And I have a kind of three parts to it. The first part is being dedicated. I call that all in. The second part of my philosophy is about being positive, and that's all good. And then the third part is all for one, and that's being a team player and being humble. And that's kind of what I really wanted to sum up. That it wasn't one experience; it was accumulation throughout 32 years of great people taking care of me. And so now I'm in this stage where I want to help others, and I do it a bit in my consulting. I support some nonprofits that help veterans. One of them you might like, Gavin. These are the one nonprofit I'm with is one called Force Blue, and this is a
Okay.
bunch of special forces veteran divers. So we have some Brits on there. I think, what is it, the SAS? Is that or is it the SBS?
We've got the SBS, which is
That's it.
the special boat service. Yeah.
That's it. Right. We have some veterans from there, and they're all. And what we do is we do marine conservation, where we restore coral reefs. We do trash cleanups. We do some scientific surveys, and we've done them around Florida and California and in the oceans. And it's cool because it's helped some of these veterans with PTS basically heal themselves through doing some good for the ocean. Everyone loves that, and then we're helping the ocean too. So I guess, yeah, that just to answer your question, I just feel so grateful that now I'm just trying to pay it forward. And I guess just to wrap up, and that's what I'm doing with this book that I have that I'm going to maybe talk about more on the next session as part 2 of our show, where it's just about my leadership approach in the Navy and how I developed it through time and through really good people. And then when I went and led in government at this ocean and meteorology agency, NOAA, how I applied those principles at that level. And so it's going to be an interesting read. We'll see where it goes, and I'm going to publish it next year.
Nice. I was going to say, do you have a rough date of when it'll be out? So next year, some point.
I hope by the midway point or early summer. I don't know. I've never published a book before, so I know you've had, for example, I think Tom Shea is that his name, and the SEAL Silver Star winner.
That's right. Yeah, we've had him.
Yeah, he's good, but he's got his book, and so I'm trying to. I don't think it's easy to predict how long the publishing process takes, but I'm almost done writing it, so I'm optimistic.
Okay, fingers crossed for that. And I'm sure people can just search for your name next year, and will no doubt find your book, because I'm guessing the title's still in the works.
No,
So
I got the
I won't.
title. I got the title.
You got the
So
title. Do you want to share it, or
yeah,
is that
I
too
sure
soon?
do. I sure do. So that it's called "Holding Fast in Heavy Seas: Leading America's Top Ocean Agency in Turbulent Times." And what I talk about is that I learned all these great skills in the Navy, and then for whatever it's worth to your audience, I led an environmental science agency under President Trump, and we had a lot of funding cuts, and some of the other environmental science agencies had a lot of people leave, and we ended up having most people stay. We actually had more people come in to our agency, and we actually saw our surveys of employee satisfaction climb by 20 percentage points. So it was, and I really do. I think it was about positive leadership at a time where there was some uncertainty, and I tell real specific examples that I think might be a good guide for people wanting to improve their leadership ability.
Well, hopefully people can buy it, read it, and gain something from it. So, yeah, good luck with that for sure, for sure. So we have had to skip over your career, 32 years, just gone in a short space of time. But like you say, maybe in the future we can come back for a part two. However, we have come to the point in this current episode where we can get some advice from you. You've shared some already, but I want to kind of like hone into a specific area. So the first bit of advice is from you to those that are thinking of joining the military. Have you got any advice for people that are thinking of joining?
Well, I'd say do your homework. I think the military is not for everybody, but it is a great calling. So I certainly encourage people to consider it. But it's important to learn what it's really about. It's unfortunate when I see someone who joins the military for the wrong reasons, let's say education, and they just find it doesn't fit with them. So just talk to people in the military and learn what it's about, and so make sure whoever is considering going in to really know with clear eyes what you're getting yourself into. And I encourage it. I think it was a great thing for me and the many teammates I've had. But it's important to know you go into it for the right reasons, and you know for sure what you're getting yourself into.
That is some sound advice for sure. The second part is any advice for veterans, and that could be people that have been out for a while, or perhaps people that are just about to transition.
I do have advice for veterans, and I work with a veterans nonprofit, and one of the things I've seen in the U.S., and I don't think it's just the U.S., is that the suicide rate is really high right now, and I'm seeing it in the Navy SEAL community, and it's unfortunate. So for folks who might be struggling, reach out and find a friend, and don't be afraid to talk about that and find help. That's first and foremost for those people. For people who are not in that case, that's great. I just say maintain your network. I find that now that I grow my network every day, and I enjoy it because it always comes back to me in some positive way. So just keep up with your network and stay close to the veterans community, because you'll find it. You'll be glad you did, because you'll have connections and things will happen, and you'll just if you stay isolated, I think you're going to be missing out.
Mm-hmm. More great advice there. Definitely, thank you, Tim, for that. So we've pretty much come to the end. Just want to ask how you found jumping on the show for these kind of 50 minutes or so.
Oh, this has been great. Gavin, you're a really terrific host. I appreciate that you care about people, and here you are. You're inquisitive and you ask people about themselves. Maybe our next show we'll talk more about you and your terrific experiences. I want to talk about diving maybe too next time and what you've done. I think Belize is at least one of the, and you've also been to Oman. And I want
right.
to let's make sure we add that to our list, because I've been to that country about 5 or 6 times, and
Yeah.
I love Oman. That's some good scuba diving there too.
Yeah, maybe we can do like a special spin-off or something. I'm not sure, but thank you, Tim, for sharing everything that you've shared and some of the experiences you've gone through, and also for your time. I've mentioned this a few times in this recording. You are a busy man, so thank you for giving up some of your time for the show.
Gladly, Gavin. Thanks for doing this. Keep it up.
No problem. And lastly, I say this to all my guests: thank you for your service.
Oh, and you as well.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Tim.
Okay, take care, Gavin. Thank you.
This has been Military Veterans Podcast. Out.